Hello and welcome back to my hobby bench. My name is Ken, and today I'm going to continue working on the Tamiya 1/48th scale M1A2 Abrams. When we last left off, we were about to head to the paint booth, where we're going to be adding some color to our road wheels. The instructions of the Tamiya kit actually do have the color paints they want you to use. These are only listed as the Tamiya paints. They don't give you the numbers for other producers' paints. So I'm going to pause here and we'll come back and I'll talk a little bit about brush painting and then move on to the paint booth for some airbrushing. So here you can see I have some tools and some paints for painting the model. If I'm going to be painting the bottom of this tank, for example, I'm going to need a large flat brush, cover a large amount of areas while you can. I have a couple of choices of the smaller brushes that I can get into smaller areas, as well as when we get to the top of the tank, anything that's really small, tucked in, I can use one of these little disposable eyelash glue applicators as a brush. As for paints, we have a couple choices here. We have our Tamiya that they recommended. XF59 Desert Yellow is one of the colors on that list, as well as the Tamiya acrylic paint thinner. This is X20A. They do make it X20 without the A. Don't mistake the two. This one is for their acrylic paints and is more designed for that, whereas just the X20 is more of a lacquer base. Also, to go with the Tamiya paints, I have their paint retarder, which slows the drying time, which is great for when you're brush painting, because it can help you avoid brush stroke marks, because as you put it down, the paint's gonna take a little longer to dry and have a little more time to settle into a nice flat surface. Whereas for this Viejo Model Air, even though it's pre-thinned, you also have this thinner you could add, and I believe this would have a slight retarding effect as well, allowing the brushed on paint to flatten out a little bit more as well. So the example of how I would paint this now would be, I would mix up the color, and if I'm using Tamiya, I would use the paint retarder. I would take the paint and I would apply thin coats in nice strokes like that. And once it kind of dries off for a while, I'd come back in with a second thin coat, and I would go another direction. I would go like 90 degrees to it, so like that. And that's what I'd do. And I'd do as many thin coats as it takes to get a nice even coverage without being able to see the color disruption from the color of the plastic. And that's just a basic idea of what you want to do for brush painting. You want to do thin coats, multiple coats. Don't ever go back once you've painted something wet. Don't come back over it afterwards while it's still wet, because that can actually cause some drag marks in your paint because the paint is already starting to dry. So just something to keep in mind. I personally don't do brush painting, but only for the small parts. I always use an airbrush, and that's what I'm going to be using on the road wheels and the drive sprocket. Whereas the top return rollers here, I'm not going to worry about, as no one's going to see them. Alternatively, also for painting with a brush, you can still prime. You can find primers that you can paint on by hand, and that'll help the paint to stick better. Alternatively, you get yourself a aerosol primer, such as Tamiya has one. Viejo actually makes a primer that comes in a spray can. They also have specific bottles of primer you can get. Me personally, I use an airbrush, and you'll see me using the AK primer microfiller, which comes in several different colors. So I'm going to move on now, and I'm going to go over to the hobby bench's spray booth, and we'll start spraying the road wheels and the drive sprockets. Be right back. Here we are at the paint booth. I have set up, I have a booth for painting, which I can vent all the paint fumes and the particles outdoors. Also in my paint booth I have a face mask to help protect my lungs from particles. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to prime the model first. I'm going to be using the primer and microfiller by AK. I'll be using my airbrush right here. It's a M1A2 HPCS, and I'll be using a little stick here. It's like a tongue depressor type stick. Pick them up from Michael's or places like that for a bag of, I don't know, 50 or 100 for really cheap. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this. This is just white tack or poster tack, that sort of material. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread some out. Sometimes it needs to be warmed up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this. I'll be needing more than what I have here. But to start with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach some of this white tack to this stick, and then I can put down pieces to be painted. So when the air is coming out of the airbrush, that it doesn't blow the parts around like that. So I'm going to continue on getting this ready, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I now have all my drive sprockets and wheels attached to these sticks here. Alternative to the white tack, you could use double-sided tape would work, or you could do them individually on something like one of these sticks. I've done that with 1/35 before. Or alternatively, you could paint it all by hand. However, since I have access to an airbrush, I will be using that. Alright, now when I start up my air filter here on the paint booth here, it's going to get a little loud, and I'm going to be hard to understand while I'm wearing a mask. And you'll probably also hear the compressor kick in for the airbrush as well. So my apologies in advance for any loud sounds you hear, but unfortunately that is part of the hobby. So I'm going to put on my gear here and I'm going to get started. That's the air filter.
I now have my mask on, so I'm hard to hear. So I'm going to take my primer. It's been mixed pretty well. I'm going to take a pipette. This is a disposable little pipette that's made of cheap plastic. Pull some out, load up the airbrush, just like that, maybe a little bit more, that should be good. Okay, I have my airbrush. I'm going to put the cap on it to prevent spills. And make sure my airbrush is spraying fine. Yeah, spraying well. Okay, then I'm going to apply my primer coat. Adjust my air pressure here. I have a little valve on the bottom of my airbrush. There we go, a little less pressure. And get it from the sides. Again, my apologies if you can't hear me that well. But like I was just saying, I'm going to paint along the sides as well as into the front. Just like that. I'll come around this side. Putting that there. Making sure I got everything I can. And I'll put that aside. And we'll move on to this other one. It's kind of a light dusting to begin with. I find works, just to kind of get that paint, just an initial kind of a stick down onto the plastic. And once you kind of have that dusting down, I kind of go in and give it that thicker coat of primer, but not too thick. The primer coat's just going to show if we have anything that needs to be fixed up, like seams or any sort of other damage that might be on there that might need to be cleaned up. It also gives the better adhesion to the paint. So again, I'm making sure I get on the sides. Just like that. My apologies if I'm missing some of this and I'm moving out of frame. Alright, there we go. That's our first coating of primer. Got some pretty good coverage. If we need to come in and give it a little bit more. So I'm going to let this dry for a few minutes. And then I will be right back to flip them over and finish priming.
Okay, I've now flipped all the parts over, and I think I only let it dry for maybe 5 or 10 minutes before it was, dry enough to touch. So I will now suit up again and finish priming these, and I don't believe you really need to see that. You've seen the first side, so I'll save you the torture of watching. Okay, now you can hear me better. What I've done is I've finished priming these. They've had a little bit of time to dry. Should be able to pick them off now. I'm going to swap them back to their original side, or what will be their outside part of the tank that you'll be able to see. Then I'm going to start putting a little color on them with some Tamiya XF85 rubber black. Okay, so here we are now with our dried off road wheels for the tank. We also have the drive sprockets here, which we're not going to need for this next step. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove them and put them off to the side. If you ever have any of this white tack, if that's what you're using, with its residue stick to the piece, you can actually, I just give this a little tap back down where it was sitting. It's still a little tacky. Tacky as being from the tack, not from the paint. And then I'm just going to tap that piece back on here, and the little bit of white tack that's stuck to the part will generally stick back down to the main body of the what's on the stick. There we go. Just like that. So I'll put these up here. We'll take my XF85 rubber black, giving it a bit of a shake, kind of mix it up. Open the bottle here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little mixing cup here, take out some of this rubber black, and put it in the cup. There we go. Close that bottle back up so I don't knock it over. And I'm going to use a thinner to thin this paint down to let it easily go through my airbrush. And the thinner I'm going to use is Mr. Color Rapid Thinner, and that's going to help these parts dry off quicker. They'll have other thinners as well. For example, they have a leveling thinner, which has a bit of a paint retarder in it. So when you spray that on there, it's going to allow the paint to stay, or cause it to dry slower, so it will be able to level out on a surface. And then there's just the regular thinner, which is good if you're not worried about rapid thinning or leveling thinners. It's also good for cleaning your airbrush. So I'll add a little bit of this rapid thinner. Okay. And then I'm going to give it a bit of stir and a mix, and just kind of suck that mixture up and back into the cup again, just to kind of give it a good mix. I just want to see how thick it's running. Seems to be running pretty good. I think that's good enough for my airbrush. So what I'm going to do here, I've cleaned my airbrush out, just kind of give it a blow through to remove the thinners, or the primer I had in there. I just used some of that thinner. So I'm going to load up my airbrush here, get suited up, and I'll do these wheels up here, and then I'll come back to you when that's all done. Alright, so we finally have finished up getting our rubber black onto our road wheels, and our drive sprockets are just only primed. So what I'm going to have to do next is, for painting the road wheels, I will put a little bit of lighter color, probably some white, inside the center of each one. Just a little bit, not completely paint out the inside. And then after that, I can put in the color we're going to use for the road wheels. Now, what the white's going to do is kind of give us a faded effect. So there'll be the dark area in the to the edges, and then just a little bit of a lighter color to the center where it's more visible to the sun and can sun fade a little bit more. And we'll be going into that a lot more when we get to the top of the tank, with some lighter areas of panels and shadowed areas. So I'm going to reattach these now that they've dried to our sticks again, and we'll get the little bits of white on there once I get my airbrush set up, and we'll show you what that looks like.
blue, whatever. It's absolutely it's your call, I think, with it. You've got some tons and tons of different recipes, and it's what you're comfortable with. So.
Okay, so we saw that I painted up a little bit of white in the centers, but not overwhelming. It's just kind of nicely, when you get that centered here, you can kind of see it just nicely, does a little, a lighter spot to the center. And now, when it comes to this white tack here, you see it's all painted black. However, it is reusable. I've been using the same sort of clump for years, and once you just kind of return it to the main clump, you can just kind of mix it in there, and it just, you don't have to worry about that paint being all over it. It'll still be in there, and over time it will wear this down, but like I said, over years I've been using this, and it's still good. Like that. I'm going to leave a little bit left on here to attach these right here for painting. However, with the rest of the road wheels here, we're going to be using one of these circle templates. I'd shown you earlier that you can kind of go around here and you can kind of look to see what size you need. Then once you found your size, you would want to mask off the others around it, so that way when you come up under there with your wheel, you don't get overspray coming in from the sides or anything that's gonna mar the paint job on the wheel. And for this, I'm also going to be wearing a pair of gloves. So I'm going to get this set up here. We're going to be using our main color right here. It's a AK interactive paint here. It's sand. It is based off the US, has a little star here for the US markings for the country. And it's an FS color, so which is federal standard. Looks like FS 30277. So that'll get your AK sand color, which is also their RC for real colors 084. Okay, so I'm gonna mix that up. I'm gonna mix it up with, well, maybe I'll do a little of the leveling color, or leveling thinner from Mr. Color, and we'll get in there, do that, and we'll also spray up our drive sprockets. Alright, so I'm going to get everything set up here with the airbrush, and I'll be back and we'll get spraying. Alright, before I begin here, I went in and put a little bit of black primer back in around on the drive sprockets here, so that we have more of that shadowed effect, as well as deep down inside here as well. Alright, and for the white I used the same kind of style primer I was using. It does come in 3 colors that I'm aware of, possibly more. There's the gray I used for my main primer on the wheels. There's the white, which I used to spray in the white parts of the wheels here. And then there's the black, which I used for the black on here. It is, I didn't want to use the black for the rubber on the tires here. I prefer to use something a little slightly different. So, what I'll do now is I will mix up my sand color. I have my template taped off. I've mixed up my paint here. So, let me zoom out here a little bit. Oh, that's the wrong way. Okay. Let's get that out of the way. Open up our paint. Take some out of here. This does not seem to be working. Let's get another pipette here. Yeah, seems to be working. There we go. Get our paint. I don't need that much. I'm going to mix it in the cup right here. So put some in. You can see it's quite viscous, and that's not going to go easily through the airbrush at all. But that should be enough paint for what we need. So let's close this back up so I don't have an accident and spill it, because I can tell you that wouldn't be the first time. Okay, we're going to use some of the leveling thinner. So let's pour it in here. We're looking for maybe about a 50-50 mix between the paint and the thinners. There we go, like that. And then I just kind of give it a bit of a mix here with the pipette. I can kind of draw it into the pipette and then blow it back into the cup here a few times, just to kind of get it really well mixed. There we go. And we'll come back over here to our airbrush here, which we've cleaned out. I don't disassemble in between color changes. All I'm doing is I'm just putting some of the Mr. Color thinner in there, you know, as well as a paintbrush in there, kind of mop it out and then blow it through to make sure it's clean. So, this will be probably way more paint than we need, but better to have too much than not enough, because I can always draw whatever's in the color cup back out with the pipette afterwards and put it back. So, I'm going to mask up. I only need one glove at a time for the hand that's going to be holding the wheels. The hand holding the airbrush won't really need a glove. So let me get that set up and we'll begin painting.
Okay, here we go. I've got my mask on again, and I've got my glove on here. My vent is going, and we're going to check out our spray, make sure we're laying down some color. We are. I'm going to zoom in a bit here, like that, and we'll begin laying down our color. So we'll start off just dusty, not too thick, just like that. we're good for now. We'll come back later and flip that over. Now I'm going to take one of my wheels, and line it up best I can, hold it there. Oh. Let's see here. It's easier to say than it is to do. Okay. Now the size of this hole on here, if you're wondering, is 15-30 seconds. Come in here. I'll just give it a bit of a go around and make sure we kind of get in there at all the angles. Kind of get the color in there. I'm not going heavy because I don't want to undo the shading that I did. And just like that. One wheel done. Once I've done all the wheels, I'll come back in and I'll do the back side as well. The back side does not have the white in there because it's not really going to be seen, so we're not worried about it. But for now, I'll turn off the camera, I'll continue spraying, and I'll come back and show you what the results are.
Alright, so we're out of the paint booth now, and as you can see here we have our wheels and drive sprockets looking good. What we're going to do now is we're going to tackle those glass little windows here for the oil. And what I'm going to use is X18. This is semi-gloss black from Tamiya. And there's several ways you can do it. You can get yourself a paintbrush, probably a little finer than this, and you can just do your painting of these glass windows. Alternatively, you can get something like these packs here, which are little micro brushes, they call them. And as you can see, they're very, very fine. And you can really get in there and just use a little bit of paint on this little bit of brush and do it that way. Now, if you don't want to buy these when this pack here was $12 Canadian, you can go to places like Amazon. You can order big containers for really cheap. And what you're going to look for on Amazon are eyelash glue applicators. So that's what these are. They're used for gluing on your false eyelashes. So I'm gonna take my paint. Now I've already given it a good shake already, but I'm gonna give it a little bit more. I'm gonna open this up. And I can take a little bit of paint, which I'm going to zoom the camera in a little bit and get us a little bit of a better view of what I'm doing. So let's move these sprockets out of the way. I'll take a little bit of black paint here. I'm just going to bring this up. It's a little, I don't know if the camera will focus. That might be a little bit too much. So what I do is just give it a little tap with some paper towel and see where we're at. Yeah. Let's try that again. There we go. Come and do the second one. I may have a little bit too much paint on this brush, so I'll knock a little bit off on some paper towel. And try it now. There we go. That's better. There we go. Just like that. Alright, I'm going to carry on, and I'll come back and show you when I'm done. Alright, so we have everything done for our first few stages of the build. We have step 1 completed, which is our lower hull here. I'm not going to be worried about painting rubber or anything on these return rollers here, because they're going to be under the side skirts. You're not really going to see anything. So, and I haven't painted the bottom yet. I'm going to wait until a little bit later. Stage 2 was getting the wheels and the drive sprockets completed. Stage 3 now, as we go through our instructions, stage 3 here wants us to attach all the road wheels. Now I'm not going to do that at this time. I can put them in place without them being glued in, and that's fine. Just like that. A drive sprocket on the back with the poly cap, so it'll actually stick in place. The other road wheels won't. But to give you kind of an idea what it looks like, you can just drop them all in place like that. And you'll get a good idea of how we've done. Just like that. Oh, there we go. Just like that. There we go. Now the next stage after that is going to be stage 4. What we're going to be doing in stage 4 is we're going to be building the tracks. They're, like I said earlier, they're link and length. But we're not going to deal with that today. I think what we've done today is more than enough. So what I'm going to do is we'll end it here, and we'll come back next time and we'll begin working on our tracks. So thanks for joining me. You take care, and we'll see you next time.